Good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting of the July 25th meeting of the Costa Mesa Sanitary District to order in the absence physically of our president, who's somewhere in the hinterlands of the Midwest. He's asked me to chair the meeting this evening, so I'll do that. But I am going to ask Bob to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay, please stand and place your hand over your heart and follow me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, undivided,
indivisible, with liberty.
indivisible. And
A quick invocation invocation for everyone. You'd bow your heads. Thank you for bringing all safely to this meeting this evening. Please provide strength to all that are experiencing hardships. We ask that you guide our decisions this evening towards the benefit of all. Amen. All right, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Director Brett Eccles,
Here.
Director Arthur Perry,
Here.
Secretary Arlene Schaefer, here, Vice President Michael Schaefer,
Here.
President Robert Uten.
here,
Thank you.
Okay. Any ceremonial matters or late communications, Scott? All right, then we are going to go directly to public comments. And this evening, we're honored to have a guest with us this evening from Mesa Water. If you'd like to come to the podium. I didn't see his name.
He is not on.
Not. Did you want to wait for him or?
Oh, no, that's okay.
Okay.
We sort of, tag team this thing, but,
It's all yours, bud.
but anyway, thank you for allowing me to speak. Good evening, President Uten and Acting Chair Schaefer, directors and staff here at the Costa Mesa Sanitary District. I'm Jim Fissler. I'm a director at Mesa Water District, but I'm also your elected voting representative at OC LAFCO. And I know you know what LAFCO is, but any of your viewers are going, what is this guy talking about? So I'll just briefly tell you that OC LAFCO is an acronym. It stands for Orange County Local Agency Formation Commission. And it's made up of 7 voting members, 2 Orange County supervisors, 2 special district electeds, Chair Davert and myself on the commission, 2 representatives from cities. I'm not sure if you have to be mayor, but the 11 years I've been there, it seems like it's always been mayors, and then 1 public member. And so, and then for each of those 4 categories, there's 1 alternate. So there's a total of 11 members, 4 alternates, and 7 voting members. And as you can tell by the groups I said that are up there, that's who we serve. We serve the cities, the special districts, the counties, and the community. And our goal, our mission is to ensure effective and efficient delivery of public services. We don't do land use issues. We're prohibited from land use issues and zoning. Doug and I, we go around to all the special districts every year. And when we were up for election, we made some promises to you, and we said we were going to make OC LAFCO more of a resource and a facilitator, not so much an initiator or some kind of commission to be feared. And so I think we've done a good job of that. As far as a resource, I think the most outstanding thing we've done so far is revamped our website. It's tremendous. It's still a work in progress, but it's filling in quite nicely. On there, we have all the commissioners, our phone numbers and emails in case you need to get hold of us. We have forms so you can look over. Of course, they'll tell you right at the top of the forms, look them over, but contact staff to guide you before you file them. But the forms cover things such as annexations, detachments, protest letters, reorganizations, sphere of influence amendments. There's lots of maps. Fiscal trends analysis is coming soon, and past MSRs. And again, for the viewers, what is an MSR? It's a municipal service review, which is a comprehensive study for the commission, agencies, and the community regarding provisions of service and the sustainability of the model that's being used to deliver these services. But outreach was one of our main goal.
Doug just joined us.
Okay, I'll just finish
Great.
up.
Keep going. Keep
So
your-
outreach was our main goal, and you have in front of you, and I'm sure we'll put on the screen, what's called our special district dialogue that Doug and I started issuing 3 years ago. We send it straight to the emails of every elected special district member and the general managers. We purposely keep it to one page so you don't trash it. You know it's going to be short and that you'll read it. And now LAFCO itself in January started their own kind of newsletter called The Pulse. And it is on their website under the resources tab. And it comes out every 6 months. Right now, they only have the January issue. But any day now, I'm sure the next issue will come out because it's been 6 months. And with that, I want to thank you for your time. And it was a pleasure to be here and talk with all of you. And I'm here to answer any questions, but we'll give it to the chair of LAFCO here.
We appreciate you being here tonight. These kind of updates are important, I think, for not just us, but I appreciate what you said about the public. I mean, we know the acronyms, we know the stuff that happens, and to have you here to explain it is really appreciated. So thanks for taking your time. Doug, you as well. Thanks for taking some time to be with us this evening.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. I'll be brief. I'm sure that Jim already covered most of the territory, but we are making a sincere effort to reach out to all the stakeholders, keep you informed of what's going on, make LAFCO user friendly as we promised. The good news for all of you tonight is we're not here to ask for anything. We're just here to check in with you, see if you have any questions, and remind you that we're here should you have any LAFCO needs. And that's really the purpose of our appearance here tonight. I'm sorry I couldn't join you in person, and I had a little trouble getting on Zoom, so I apologize for my tardiness, but thank you. And unless you have any questions, that's really all I have for you tonight.
Any questions for Doug or Jim from anyone?
Well, yeah, let me ask one question, either Doug or Jim, but I noticed on the sheet that you'd prepared, and I think you're doing a good job keeping the promises that you made. Is our region delayed? It said it would be 2023. You've hired a consultant to help
Yeah,
do those things.
The short answer, Mr. President, is yes, everything's been delayed. The LAFCO staff will be reaching out to your agency when they're ready to proceed. But everything had to slide a little bit. We got behind with COVID and a few other staffing issues, but things are moving forward.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
23-24 is what you're scheduled for. Not 22-23 right now. So it's 23-24. So next July starts the fiscal year.
Good. All right. Well, thank you both again for taking your time this evening and being with us. We really do appreciate it.
Thanks, folks. We'll see you soon.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Doug.
sir.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on then to the consent calendar. Anyone have any items to pull?
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimous then to approve the consent calendar. Okay, at this time, we are going into public hearing. And I have a script that I will present to you. We will now conduct a public hearing to adopt resolutions confirming wastewater and solid waste charges to be collected by the county auditor. The hearing is to implement our annual assessment on the tax rolls of our charges for solid waste and wastewater. These rates have already been established in compliance with Proposition 218. This is the annual assessment that is done based on the engineer's report that is to be filed with the county auditor. The hearing is an opportunity for protest in case a property owner may believe his or her property classified or assessed. I will now open the public hearing. Are there any protests to be recorded?
No, Mr. Vice President.
Anyone in the audience wish to protest? I think there's only one of you that probably, no, actually, two of you could legally.
Mr. President,
Yeah.
I just was curious, have we heard from anybody on the phone or,
No, she said no.
None. Okay, I just want to be sure.
Very good. Okay, hearing no,
I have a quick question. Did we mail out information to all the public?
Yes, we did.
Okay, hearing no objections or protests, I will now close the public hearing and entertain a motion to
I-
adopt the resolutions which will assess the properties in the district and which will be filed by the district clerk with the county auditor. First
Move
is the,
approval.
wait a minute. First is the resolution adopting the wastewater charges.
I move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Uten, a second by Perry. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous for the resolution adopting the wastewater charges. Next is the resolution adopting the solid waste charges.
Move for approval.
Second.
Motion by Perry, second by Secretary Schaefer. Discussion?
Do we have a resolution number yet? Or is that, you working on that?
We have one.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion to adopt the resolution adopting the solid waste charges passes unanimous.
That's a 2022 967 and 968.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, then the next item is to close the public hearing. Is that right? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Oh,
That's right.
of course we did. Then we will move now to the general manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The first item on the agenda is to receive and file the district's fats, oil, grease annual assessment program. So just to give you a brief history about our fog control program, it was developed to comply with the state of California's 2006 general waste discharge requirements for sanitary sewer systems. The program is to seek to minimize the discharge of fog into the district sewer system and avoid sanitary sewer overflows. The district hired EEC Environmental to be our fog control enforcement. They will go out and visit the restaurants that have grease interceptors and grease traps that have to comply with our fog control program to make sure they're in compliance. They also will send out notification letters to those restaurants, informing them of non-compliance. It gives them recommendations on how to comply. And then if they need enforcements, that's when they bring us involved, and we can, if we need to, issue citations or other enforcement remedies. So what we do once a year is Joe Jenkins from EC will give you an annual report of their activities, and then he makes the recommendations, and we open up for questions to staff, and then that will conclude for tonight. So I'm going to turn over to Joe Jenkins to give a presentation.
Great, thanks, Scott. Joe, good evening. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to be back, everyone, again. And so, yeah, we can get right into it. Thank you. Oh, there we go. Okay, great. So I wanted to start out just by summarizing the key fog program activities that EEC provides to the district. And really the primary activity we provide is conducting what we call risk-based FSC inspections. And so what this means is we prioritize our inspections to focus on the food service establishments that have the highest risk to discharge excessive fog to the sewer system and to cause SSOs. And we want to make sure we're maximizing our resources by focusing on these facilities rather than other ones that aren't really causing any problems. And so I'll talk a little bit later about how we categorize and prioritize the FSCs for inspections. We also, when we're out conducting the inspections, we provide them with fog control program educational and outreach materials. That's the primary goal of these inspections, is just to make sure that they're educated on the rules and requirements of the program. But if needed, we also do FSC enforcement and enforcement coordinations. We conduct follow-up compliance inspections for non-compliances identified. And if needed, we draft and work with the district to issue enforcement letters. And if it comes to it, eventually, board hearings or fines. We manage all of the inspection data and FSC information in a centralized database that can be queried and statistically analyzed if needed with the results of our inspections. We support the plan review with the plan review staff. If they have questions about a new facility coming in, what type of grease interceptor should they have? Are they installing the appropriate type of interceptor? So we'll work with them on that. And also reviewing what we call enhanced maintenance locations that are fog related. So if there's an area of the sewer system that needs to be cleaned, more frequently than annual, then we'll try and identify the cause of that and the upstream sources that could be causing those issues. We use a wide variety of resources to manage the FSC inventory. Once a year, we'll do a review of the healthcare agencies list. They have a very comprehensive list of all of the food service establishments that's in Orange County. We'll occasionally work with the city to review business licenses. Of course, when new facilities come in and do their plan review and some plans, at that time we can add them to the database. And then just through field inspections, when our inspectors are out there in the field, if they see a new facility that they haven't seen before, then they'll note it and add it to the list. So just some statistics here on the total food service establishments in the programs. We did see a slight increase in the total number compared to the previous year. And along with that, increases in gravity grease interceptors installed, that's GGI. And then also the hydromechanical grease interceptors, which is the smaller traps. So this is how we prioritize the food service establishments for inspection and identify their risk. So it starts with the presence of high risk, what we call high risk cooking equipment. That's grills, griddles, deep fryers, anything that could really generate a lot of fats, oils, and grease in the kitchen. And also the proximity to enhanced maintenance locations. So facilities that are upstream of those locations, we'll want to inspect them more frequently. Their grease interceptor status. So facilities with grease interceptors are inspected more frequently than facilities without, mainly because we need to make sure that they're maintaining them properly, because a grease interceptor that's not maintained well can cause a lot of problems in the sewer system. And then also on their kitchen best management practices requirements, BMP requirements. So if they're in an enhanced maintenance location and they don't have a grease interceptor, we want to make sure that they're implementing the proper kitchen best management practices. And then so we'll inspect them more frequently to make sure they're staying on top of it, because they do have a high risk to discharge fog if they don't have an interceptor. So it breaks down like this in terms of the inspection frequencies, in terms of how many we do quarterly, semi-annual, annual, and then biannual. So I'm sorry, you go back to that right quick.
That went fast.
So the ones that are biannual, those are facilities without grease interceptors and they're not in an enhanced maintenance location. They have no history of like repeat compliance issues, no history of excessive fog discharge. And so we will constantly evaluate these inspection frequencies and we'll adjust them, as needed based on our inspection results. Okay, and then here's how we do that. So their compliance history is a big factor. If someone has repeated non-compliances, then we'll increase their inspection frequency until they start achieving consistent compliance. Through operations and maintenance observations or CCTV observations, you'll see heavy fog accumulation at a facility's lateral connection, and so that'll indicate to you that they're discharging too much fog. We review the healthcare agency inspection lists and identify issues through that. And then just through field observations, illicit activities, if they have recent private sanitary sewer overflows or restricted effluents like in their grease interceptors. So some examples of these. recently had in the actual report, we put the facilities names in there, but for the purpose of this presentation, I didn't, but if you guys are really curious.
Darn.
There's a large bar and grill. They were originally on a quarterly inspection frequency, but they had numerous private sanitary sewer overflows. Their grease interceptors in like a back alleyway, and it kept kind of overflowing past the lids, and a guy walking his dog would see it every day, and eventually he called it in for us. So we actually had them increase their pumping frequency of the grease interceptor to monthly, and also increase their inspection frequency to monthly, just to make sure that they're staying on top of it and that they're, not letting the interceptor be overly full, so it causes backups and spills. And so far, they're complying. So another example, again, a large breakfast chain. They were originally an annual inspection frequency, but through consistent non-compliances that we've seen from them, and then they had a number of backups that backed up inside of their kitchen area. So this was brought to our attention through the healthcare agency, and then so we had to adjust their inspection frequency to now quarterly, so to make sure they're implementing their kitchen best management practices and that they're not causing problems. Okay. Enhanced maintenance locations. So again, these are the line segments that are generally cleaned more frequently than annual. Back in 2011, the district had 97 enhanced maintenance locations, and these can be caused from any number of reasons: excessive root intrusion, structural deficiencies, and of course fog. So most of the structural issues were addressed through a enhanced maintenance location committee that reduced these down to 18. The committee doesn't meet anymore; it's just kind of as needed, and so we're still focusing though on the fog related EMLs to make sure we keep those under control through heavy inspections. So a couple examples of those that are continuing to be on our list is the camp and lab area over on Bristol Street. So this is an area that just has a lot of food service establishments in a small area. They're at the top of the sewer line, so that only their wastewater is essentially going into the line there, and it's just a high density. So there's not a lot you can do from a structural standpoint to alleviate this. It just needs heavy source control. So we've been working with the property owner and property managers, and also increasing our inspections there. And they've been doing a pretty good job lately. They've been staying in consistent compliance. And then also 19th Street. This is 19th Street west of Newport. So it's a basically all the way down 19th Street. It's just a lot of food service establishments. And these are establishments that have been there since before the fog program. So they weren't required to put in grease interceptors. So most of them don't have one. And so as a result, you end up with heavy fog accumulation in that area. So we've increased our B&P inspections and have really enforced on them and emphasized proper B&Ps. So probably the best metric you can look at in terms of the effectiveness of a fog program is how many fog related sanitary sewer overflows are you observing and seeing. Okay, and so the top dark blue line is just total public sanitary sewer overflows, regardless of cause. And then the middle, I guess, lighter blue line, which probably use different colors than just blue for each one, but is fog related public sanitary sewer overflows. And then the line is kind of hard to see because you haven't had, and this is wood, right? Knock on wood, you haven't had a non-residential fog-related public sanitary sewer overflow since 2013. Okay, so from 2013 to now, it's just the line going across the bottom of the graph. Okay, so that's, it's not just, I'd like to take all the credit for that, but it's not just the fog and fog inspections. It's thorough evaluation of the sewer line, identifying, enhanced maintenance locations, proper cleaning, structural repairs. It's everything working together to achieve, essentially this is what the state is looking at in terms of, is your program effective?
Joe, quick question.
Yeah.
How does Costa Mesa compare to other cities that you work with?
Exceptionally,
In terms of,
from a sanitary sewer overflow standpoint, exceptionally well. We also work with Irvine Ranch Water District. They're very similar in terms of low fog related spills. people who have really strong proactive programs are seeing, these, not just from using us, but they have aggressive fog programs are seeing low fog spill numbers. Other ones that have programs where they're just kind of checking the box from the WDR requirement are seeing up and down fluctuations of numbers depending on seasons and that sort of thing. But yeah, exceptionally well is the.
Hey, Joe, I wanted to ask you a question. How often or what kind of interaction do you have with, say, the cleaning crews? I mean, we used to have we used to have that WDR meeting internally.
Yeah.
Is there, and so they just alert you when they see something, or?
Yes. So we work very closely with Steve Cano, who's the collection system supervisor, and he'll let us know, notify us if they identify areas of heavy fog, and then we'll focus our resources on those areas. And so that was 19th Street. We talk about that location a lot in terms of what they're seeing, and is it improving, is it getting better, that sort of thing. So we do. It's not on a regular basis. It's more, they talk to us when they're seeing problems. So it's more reactive than proactive, but
Okay.
I had a couple of questions. One is, what if they didn't comply? What would you do?
Right. So with any fog inspection, so we do have like an enforcement response plan or procedure. So with the initial inspection, we identify their non-compliances and we give them a certain number of days to correct those. So typically it's like 7 days for a BMP non-compliance. Then we will conduct a follow-up inspection to see if they've complied, and if they haven't, then we'll try and figure out why. Why aren't they complying with it? Because usually it shouldn't take, unless it's a serious issue, it shouldn't take that long to comply, especially after you've already done a follow-up. So if they're just not willing to, then we'll increase enforcement, usually through a letter,
Mhm.
threatening either a fine or a board hearing, or we'll try and work with them.
Now, are they aware that you're coming? Or do you just go when you want to go there?
Yeah, we don't pre-schedule them. We just
Okay.
kind of show up.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So some recommendations here, certainly recommend just to continue with this risk-based approach of focusing on these enhanced maintenance locations in the areas of your sewer system that have the highest risk for fog blockages and fog spills. Maintaining compliance goals. So this is where we're really trying to achieve these non-compliance rates for both our BMP inspections, which is kitchen best management practices, and then GRE is when we inspect grease interceptors and grease traps. And so in terms of this last year, I didn't put the statistics in the slide, but it's in the report. For BMP non-compliances, we were at 16%. And so slightly above that goal. And we believe a lot of that is because we saw a lot of turnover in terms of restaurant employees. A lot of them left because of COVID reasons. They're in a real hiring phase right now, bringing in new employees, and a lot of them haven't done the training. But for the GRE inspections, we saw a 3% compliance rate when we were out there, which is really great. That's one of the best compliance rates I've seen since we started fog program. So, and I think a lot of that is also COVID related because we focused on GRE and grease interceptor inspections when we couldn't go inside the facilities when everything was shut down. So we're going to continue, and that's kind of the third goal here is continue to identify ways that we can, I guess I don't want to say enforce, but educate facilities to help them to be compliant, especially for chronic non-compliant issues. Employee training logs, identify those facilities that are always out of compliance, and then see what we can do to get them into consistent compliance. And unfortunately for some of them, they just don't want to do it, and then we'll have to go through the escalation chain to get them on board. For facilities that don't have grease interceptors, the biggest carrot there is you threaten to revoke they have a conditional waiver or conditional variance to not have an interceptor. And you say, we're going to make you put in a grease interceptor if you don't do your employee training. All right, that's pretty much what I had.
Back to that last comment about making them, you had mentioned earlier, there's a lot of people on 19th Street that were grandfathered before the interceptors.
Yeah.
Do we have any stick to make? That's the stick to make them put one in, is if they cause some issues?
Yeah, that's the stick. And so we've looked at in that location of how to get them to put one in. That was where a few years ago we looked at the grease interceptor assistance programs and that sort of thing. It's one of the issue to just to be, to consider is that these are kind of small mom and pop type. It's not chain restaurants. And so if they have to put in a large gravity grease interceptor, you're asking them to spend $50,000 to $70,000, which could show them. So it may be more being open to them putting in something is better than nothing kind of thing, where they put something under the 3-comp sync that would help.
Couple other quick questions. When a business goes in to take out a business permit with the city, is there some kind of checklist or is there something on that business permit that tells them whether they're going to need an interceptor or not? Or is that just basically a crapshoot that we find out later?
If they're just opening like a business license and they're not doing any construction or modifications to the facility, then there's no trigger to say we need to evaluate them. But if they are getting a permit to do like plumbing modifications or store modifications, then they are sent to the district's plan review department and they're evaluated to determine if they need a grease interceptor or not.
Basically, they could start their business and until they do something wrong, we're not gonna. Okay.
So, and we see that where one facility is one name and then you go there a month later, now it's a new name. And you're like, well, what happened? As long as all they're doing is changing the name, then they don't need to come through the district.
That might be something for us to put on a city district liaison meeting, that I'd like to see some kind of checklist or some kind of box or something that business has to check when they take out their permit. It's just a safeguard, just another way to be proactive, I think.
It's
Absolutely.
healthy.
Yeah, I'm really happy to see that the breakfast chain got our message, when we had that hearing in here and he was not very receptive to doing what you had recommended. And it looks like they've taken that to heart.
Yeah, they're consistently compliant. It's not when we go there.
That's really good news. And my final comment or question is, in your report, it talked about the camp and the lab, and we've seen an increase in problems. Is it one or two sources or just the whole operation?
It's kind of the whole operation combined discharged into one point. And so you have, I don't even know how many facilities are offhand. It's like 10 or 15.
Food
So,
service in there?
Yeah, and they're big ones too. They do a lot of.
Do any of you go in there?
I did once.
I think I've been
It
there.
might not be 15, it's probably more like 10. But the issue is, even with grease interceptors, is they're just not 100% effective, And so when you have a high concentration of facilities discharging to one location, that 40 or 30 or 40% of inefficiency, it all accumulates right
Yeah,
there.
that funnel can't be too big, right?
Yeah. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Do you have any do you have anything that happens across the street from the camp? In other words, on the other side, there's a lot of restaurants there and pizza place and.
Yeah, so one side of Bristol is the lab and the other side is the camp. I can't remember
Right.
which was on which side, but you have the top of the line is right there. So where what is it? The chicken place that's on the corner right there. I can't.
Yeah.
El Pollo Loco.
Pollo Loco. So where a Pollo Loco is, they actually don't discharge to that location. The flow of the sewer goes the opposite direction. So where the camp and the lab is, they're at the very top
Mhm.
of the sewer because of the way the sloping works. Yeah.
I have a question. I called you, like 6 months ago or so about a portable grease interceptor. Is that acceptable with the county for a kitchen to be certified?
Yeah, it is. It just depends on how they're installing it and where they're installing it. They can't.
Can they use it and then take it out and put it back in when there's a function?
Yeah, they have interceptors like that. Well, I guess any above ground devices like that, you could just disconnect it. And so that's very common in, say, like churches or
Right.
schools where they do the occasional banquets or whatever. They can come in, they can hook it up and install it, use it, clean it out really good, and then you got to trust them that they're going to do that. Right. That's the biggest
We have a great facility in Costa Mesa that wants to do that. And that's why I called you.
Yeah.
Talk to you about that. Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Hey,
Just,
I have one question if I could, or one comment. I read your report. It was a very good report. And you made recommendations, and so what I've asked staff to do is do a implementation report on the recommendations so that we set goals, we set a timeline, and then you or they report back periodically or sometime, periodically on how or if they're achieving the goals. So I appreciate the recommendations that you put in there, and maybe just as simple as turning them in, maybe those goals and things are in there, but I would like a timeline and to see that we're successful in implementing the recommendations in your report.
Director Echols.
all right, thank you, Mr. Vice President. Just one question, as it's one of my favorite spots, but the one location on 17th Street that I guess they've increased their, or you've increased their inspections to monthly. What seems to be the ongoing issue there?
Well, I think the biggest thing is just poor interior BMPs. They overload the grease interceptor.
Uh,
And so before they were pumping it quarterly, which is the minimum requirement through the ordinance, that just wasn't enough for that, for as much as they're putting in there. So they're going to do it monthly, and then, they'll feel the extra cost of pumping it monthly. It's going to be, it's not cheap to pump a large interceptor. And so they'll, have to improve their kitchen best management practices to keep the food waste and the grease out of it, to improve it. But for now, they've opted to go this route. Sometimes it's easier just to have it pumped rather than try to change.
right.
you know.
And then they've been pretty, are they working with you
Yeah.
through this?
They
Okay,
are.
good,
Yeah,
I'll
they've
have
been in
to-
compliance.
good. I guess so they'll pump it through me every time I go in there, I guess. Thank you.
I think a lot of us like to frequent that place. Their interceptors in that alleyway behind and not out in the parking lot, which I guess
Yeah,
is a really good thing for that location.
yeah, that's lucky, I guess, and but it's also sometimes out of sight, out of mind, causes problems too. Yeah.
Any other questions for Joe? Thanks, as always. You always do a great for us.
Everybody,
Good
good to see
job.
everyone again. Thank you.
Good job, Joe.
Just receive and file, nothing to. Then we'll move to item 2, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. So this item was discussed by the board of directors on July 12th, 2022. And the board directed staff to bring this item back for tonight for approval consideration. And that is to consider approving a 2.8% rate adjustment to CR&R Environmental Services. As staff mentioned in the study session meeting, staff is recommending this rate because we can absorb the costs in our existing budget without going back to the ratepayers. That was a contingent. We told CNR that if we can absorb it in our budget, then we would recommend approving a 2.8%. As you see in your staff report, this request is really to offset some of the expenditures that they're experiencing due to the inflations. And as you know, it's just in the last month, in June, the inflation was 8.6%. So it doesn't look like it's going down anytime soon. So we believe it's appropriate to approve this rate adjustment. It was also shared at the Citizens Advisory Committee on July 13th, and the Citizens Advisory Committee did approve, recommending the board of directors approve CNR's request for a rate adjustment of 2.8%. So happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions for staff, anybody? Oh,
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Scott, at our study session, I'd asked for the comparison to the other districts in the county and things like that. And I didn't see that, but to the net hauler average being within 10, where are we at with that?
It's we discussed that with CNR, and they're still gathering that information.
Okay. Okay. And then have you also requested their their profitability report?
No, but we do have, if you want, we can, in the past, we have sent Mark Davis, our treasurers, to review that report. Now, we don't make that public.
Right.
We don't make too much, but we just, and he'll Mark will report back to us, said, yes, yes, they are making a profit just now, but he doesn't explain how much.
Yeah, totally. For our own benefit in reviewing this, and then, can we, or maybe why aren't we looking at this as one package when we're in current negotiations with the current contract and maybe some adjustments? Can't we just look at it all as one?
Sure, it's your purview, but the CNR staff requested staff to bring this for today. And so we're just complying to their request and want to bring to you today, this month in July.
So this is just my opinion, this standpoint after the questions, but I mean, we need to see the net hauler, average. I'd like to see the profitability, and then we're going to be looking at this. And I know President Uten's been working with staff and CR&R on the new adjustment. I would say we just look at it all at one shot and get it done. So that would just be my recommendation. Thank you.
I'm moving for approval of the 2.8 rate adjustment from CR&R.
I'll second it.
Okay. I had a quick question. In your report, you mentioned that we can absorb this and there's no adjustment to the budget.
It's 2.8% correct.
Is 2.8 the highest we can absorb?
I
Did you
don't,
even look at that?
no, I did not.
Okay, I just was curious. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the 2.8. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Nope.
So we have a 2.8% approval with 4 ayes and 1 nay. Okay. Item 3.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. This report will be given by Caitlin Tran, our finance manager.
Good
Hi,
evening.
Caitlin.
Hi, good evening, Mr. President and members of the board. In front of you is the fourth quarter preliminary budget review for fiscal year 2021-22. This report is a summary of the district's revenues and expenditures through June 30th, with the understanding the fiscal year numbers won't be final until the annual audit is complete later this calendar year. The total general and solid waste fund revenue budgets for fiscal year 2021-22 is approximately 6.5 million. As of June 30th, the district received approximately 6.7 million in revenue. The district received more revenue than budgeted, mainly from property taxes, additional container charges, charges for services, and other non-operating revenue. As of June 30th, a total of 91.4% of the solid waste fund operating budget was expended. At this time, staff anticipates a budgetary savings of $237,400, mainly due to savings in the maintenance and operations. The total wastewater fund revenue budget is approximately 5.9 million. As of June 30th, the district received approximately 6 million in revenue. The district received more revenue than budgeted, mainly from charges for services and other non-operating revenue. As of June 30th, a total of 83.5% of the wastewater fund operating budget has been expended. Staff anticipates a budgetary savings of $446,200 at fiscal year end from personnel, maintenance, and operations. Please see the attached report for more detailed analysis. And that concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Nothing but good news, huh?
It is.
Brett?
So in this, I apologize, it was a long weekend, so I may be misreading it, but in the staff report, in both funds, it mentioned a deficit, but in the summary report, as we just mentioned, good news on a surplus. So can you just clarify that for me, the difference?
Under, you're looking at the written report?
I'm looking at the written report where it said, I'll go solid waste fund where adopted budget has deficit of 431.6, and then in the actual summary report, the executive summary report, it said surplus of 237.4. And I think I know the answer. Are you saying that it was budgeted for the deficit, but we're going to come in better than budget? Is that?
Yes.
All right. Got it. And that's the same on the wastewater as well then.
Correct, yes.
Okay. And then when will the final numbers be compiled and completed, I guess, for the year?
The audit is completed the end of October, because the audit starts the beginning of October. And then the audit is during the whole month of October. And then we'll do the financial report November and present to the board in December, the end of December. So at the December board meeting.
Okay. And then the rate increases that we did for the wastewater and now the solid waste, that's all factored into some of these future projections and things like that and surpluses and all that.
This is, well, the wastewater rate increase is applying to this fiscal year, 22-23. And this report is for 21-22.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Questions for Caitlin? All right, receive and file, and thank you for your report, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's move to item 4, Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. This is a report on our annual performance measurements. This is for your second quarter of the calendar year. We do it a calendar year on our on our annual performance measurement report just to make it to simplify it for the public, capturing data and outcome on a calendar year rather than a fiscal year. So it might be a little confusing, but we keep this on a calendar year. And so happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions? No questions. We'll move to item 5.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Again, this is your other standard quarterly report. This is a progress report on the 2020-25 strategic plan. And this is on the fiscal year because we tie into the budget. And so this is your fourth quarter of 21-22 of your 2020-25 strategic plan progress report. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right. Questions, strategic. Bob, you have any questions on the strategic plan?
No, very good.
Good. Sorry, guys, moving right along. Item 6.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. This is a request to reschedule your board of directors meeting because of a conflict on August 22nd. Staff and the board will be attending the California Special District Association's annual conference in Palm Desert. So we're looking at rescheduling this meeting.
Are you thinking about moving to the next Monday on the 29th?
It's really up to you. What's your pleasure?
We probably have a board meeting in this month, I believe. I think 29th would be better for me anyway.
Any thought, Brett?
Just a question, because I know the city of Costa Mesa does, they often take a month off, either July or August. They instituted that a couple of years ago. I mean, what are we looking at? Is there anything that can't be postponed until our September study session and or board meeting?
I like to defer that question to Caitlin because I know we have some bills to pay for CR&R. Caitlin, can we defer any board meetings or any reports till a month later, or do we have to take like the CR&R reports to the board?
I believe we have to have the board approve before paying them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay. All right.
But I don't think, but if we do it in a study session, I don't think we have reports in time. So,
Scott, we could maybe do a later study session. Oh, yeah.
I-
Or,
You're gonna approve it at the study sessions.
If we have a later study session, that means we're changing 2 meetings. And I think
Yeah.
that's constructive to
yeah,
the,
okay.
I would recommend we go to the 29th. It doesn't sound like we'll have a ton, but to get that stuff done,
think it's important that we do that too. That's my recommendation of
up to the board.
29. Fits into what we normally do the
Nice.
last Monday of the month,
Why
usually.
not? When is, oh, that's, never mind. I
Oh.
was thinking of Labor Day. That's in September. huh?
I'll make the motion that we move the board meeting until August 29th.
I'll second it.
Any other discussion on that item? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion carries 4-1. That takes care of the general manager's reports. Engineer.
Thank you, Vice President Schaefer. My guess, I'm going to say that good news manhole project that we had started, we completed middle of the month. I'll be talking to you in just a minute about our West Bluff Pump Station. But other than that, I'm going to say, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them. Otherwise, that concludes my report.
I'll phrase this in the form of a comment. And I mentioned this, I think last month or the month prior. They're repaving the streets in the Bird Streets where I live.
Yes, and we're working with the city on that project. We have a contractor that's going to replace, I think it's 3 manhole frames and cover where they're only going to be doing slurry seal. And then the city's contractor has a line item in their contract for their contractor to remove and raise our manhole frame and cover to grade. There are a list that Steve Cano gave me so that we can have our the city contractor actually replace those frames and covers and replace them with new ones. Because while we'll pay the city to raise them, they won't replace them. So we provide their contractor with brand new frames and covers. They go ahead and replace everything that we need.
Because they were paving in front of my home this morning.
Okay.
And my wife texted me some lovely pictures of heavy equipment putting down asphalt. And she says, they're almost done and no more manhole covers.
Yeah,
I said, no, I said, don't get excited. And she knew that. OCSD has a couple in there too. I'm obviously, or hopefully they're aware that.
oh yeah, every public agency has been notified, not only by the city, but by Dig Alert to do underground marking. And so we have marked our, I think it's called California Pump Station. And the OC Sanitation has also marked their sewers. You can see their sewer marks are out there. But an FYI, I guess the city, when they repave the section, what they do is for the state streets, they're removing, I'm going to say 4 to 6 feet adjacent to the curb. It's about 2 to 2.5 inches deep removal. Then they place a cap over the entire street section. So where they didn't remove it and where our manholes are normally located in the middle of the street, they get covered in about 2.5 inches of asphalt.
Okay.
But the contractor, probably unknown to most people, has put 2 marks in every curb, and they basically then have a chart that says distance to the manhole covers. They basically chip down with their hammers and then they raise them up to grade.
When the kid was out there with his little magic wand marking all that stuff, they paint right on the street. And I thought, that didn't do any good if they come through and cover that up. But then I did notice the little marks on the curb, and so that's their navigation point to find out where they are.
Yeah. The water district raises their metal valve boxes to, well, they have the contractor do it as well. We all want to have their city's contractor do it. That way, if there's a premature failure, it's on their contractor and there's no finger pointing between our contractor and their contractor.
Good. Thanks, Mark. Any other questions for Mark on item 1 of his report?
Nope.
All right, item 2.
I guess you're going to put up my presentations for me, Ms. Nolani. There we go. Thank you very much. Tonight I'll be requesting some additional funding. I'm also requesting consideration for issuing a design change order for RBH and Associates, and I'll be covering that. Second slide, please. All right, West Side Pump Station, as most of you probably know, but I want to make sure everybody understands and put everybody on the same playing field, I guess, it's a smaller, one of our smaller pump stations. It's about 160 gallons a minute. It was built in 1976. The last time we spent, I'll say, large amount of money was back in 1982. So this station is really overdue for mechanical rehabilitation. I know Steve Conos has bought replacement pumps for this particular pump station. And so when I say it was last remodeled in 1982, we've replaced the pumps since then, because pumps really, they do wear, and about every 12 to 17 years, they're in pretty bad shape and they need to be replaced. But the station really is overdue. Next slide. And it's time to do some mechanical refurbishment. This is our West Side Pump Station. This is the electrical cabinet that I'll be talking about. This right here is an Edison meter, electrical meter. This circle here that's kind of covered by the bushes is our wet well. And then hiding back here in all this other shrub is the dry pit valve box. This is a green belt that goes off into the park area. And then our force main kind of scoots up this hill and goes out in an easement between a couple of these homes that are in another development outside of the development that this particular pump station serves. Next slide. Our scope of work included replacing all of the mechanical equipment, including all the piping, all the pump assemblies, including everything required to hoist the pumps out of the wet well. And the biggest reason to do this work is to ensure that mechanical readiness of our station. This is a, I'll say, topographical map of that pump station. This red box denotes the general location of our pumps. And the force main then goes up this hill and then out an easement to Canyon Avenue, I think it is, and dumps into our gravity sewer at that point. Next slide, please. Now, I mentioned corrosion is probably the biggest item why we're doing the work that we're doing in this project. And then basically everything is at the end of its useful life. So take a look at this is inside the valve vault. If you look, the caps are corroded, the piping is corroded, everything in here is in pretty bad shape. And when I looked at it, I quite frankly wondered why we didn't do this earlier. So it's really overdue. This is the cover. It's pretty corroded. And by the way, this cover is a workers' comp claim waiting to happen. So I think we're going to be doing something about that as well. But all these bushes and everything is overgrown, and the staff will come in and periodically cut all this out. But I think as part of this work, I'm contemplating pouring some concrete around here to help maintain some of the shrubbery and help with the safety of our staff when they're out there at our pump station. Next slide. Last fall, I'm going to say November, December timeframe, staff met in the Ferryman conference room. We meet monthly to talk about pump station issues and what's needed and where are we going to go and what are we doing with pump stations, and we kind of brainstorm on all the stuff that's going on. And staff reminded me, and since I'm newer, they reminded me that a reversing motor controller is part of our pump station requirements. And because we're going to be replacing the pumps with not only new pumps, but we've got new piping, pump piping, we have new removal devices, all that stuff. And really now's the time to put a new reversing motor controller in there. And so when I was scratching my head thinking about this, I went out with an electrical engineer. We opened up the cabinet. We looked at, is there room to even add this device? And what is it going to mean to our project? And when we got out there and opened up the cabinet, I found 2 or 3 things. Number one, due to the new spacing requirements per the California Electrical Code and the National Electric Code, installing this is going to make it so that we're out of compliance. So number one, if we install this, and it should be installed, and I'll explain what this does in a moment, we have to redo the cabinets. Second thing is, it turns out that picture I showed you earlier, the location of the electrical cabinet in relation to the wet well is well within the explosive gas envelope as outlined by the National Fire Protection Agency. And so we're out of compliance with that. The other thing we noticed is that from an arc flash perspective, there is no labeling. And in order to do labeling, we need to do an arc flash analysis on that facility and find out at what loads and what's the potential for an explosion due to an electrical failure or an electrical wire causing a short circuit in that facility. And so if we're going to do this and do this, why not do that work before we do the analysis? Because if we do this, if we put this in and we mess with the wiring, we're going to have to redo the arc flash work in order to put the labeling in. And the last thing I didn't put in here is that the current cabinets, when we opened them up, they're not UL rated. They should be NEMA 3R UL rated cabinets, and they are nothing of the sort. So really that station is, from electrical perspective, is completely out of compliance with current codes. They were probably met codes back in 1982 or whenever we did that work, but it really is time to do some other work out there. Next slide, please. Now, I'm going to give you a lot of cost information, and I'm going to try to go slow because to me, this is the part where I made a couple little minor mistakes. I misestimated a couple of things, and I wanted to go over that very carefully with you and make sure that you understand what I'm asking for, why I'm asking for it, what the costs are, all of that fun stuff. So the original budget based on the project inception, inception, I don't know, back about 3-4 years ago, before my time, was about $175,000 to do all the mechanical work that we wanted to do. After looking at the electrical cabinets and what we, need to do to bring that reversing controller, which, by the way, what that reversing controller does is when the electrical load starts to rise, the electrical controller measures the amperage draw of that pump, and it says, hey, I've reached a certain amperage level. It's time for me, when I'm done pumping this cycle, to turn that pump on, but I'm going to turn it on backwards. And what that does is, if there's any rags or paper towels or other unmentionables that are caught on the pump impeller, by turning that pump backwards, a lot of times it'll free it up enough to where then when it goes forward again, it pumps it through the force main and gets it out of the pump. And all of a sudden what you'll see is the amp draw and the pump is working as designed, and it doesn't have any extra loads. And what that also does is it frees up the potential clogging items that are in there, and that does reduce our potential for sanitary sewer overflows. So to do that electrical work, I estimated back in January, December timeframe, about $200,000 to add a new panel, the new electrical meter, and to site this thing where we needed to site it. And so in April, as you recall, I came to the board. I asked to transfer money from a different project to pay for this extra $200,000 that I estimated at the time. And then once I got your approval to transfer the funds, I then, now since I have money, I went and asked our consultant to give me a proposal to do that electrical work, and so that I can get them started on doing the electrical work so we can bid the project. In the meantime, since we had money that they didn't use, I told them, go ahead and get the survey work done, which they did. They hired Guida, which is a survey company we typically use. They produced the site map, and what they found, lo and behold, is that based on this tree in the background and all this other stuff, And I did estimate a little bit low that I'm going to need another $65,000 in order to do this project. And I will show you in just a minute where I missed and what I missed on, and I'll explain why I missed it. But with their having additional information that I had, including a topographical survey, they came back and said, we need about $65,000 more to do this work. Next slide, please. Now, this original cost, we estimated that pumps would be about $17,000. Remember, this was 3 or 4 years ago, before pandemic, before all the escalation in prices. Mechanical rehab was going to cost about $120,000. We were decided we would, based on these costs, we would designate about $13,000 for RBH to design the project. We anticipated, again, based on these two prices, about another $13,000 to do inspections and administration of the contract. And then for this $120,000, we wanted about 10% for contingency. Now, what I came back with is, back in April, I led a contract to our pump vendor, and instead of $17,000, the actual cost was $23,000. Not too big a difference, but it was $5,000. Based on what we know today, the $120,000 job is still we think it's going to be about $120,000. But I had estimated $120,000 worth of electrical, but based on the more detail that RBH had, they came back with $180,000 estimate. So I was about $60,000 low in estimating this new electrical work. Now, why was I low? I didn't have the topo data. I didn't know where we were going to put the electrical cabinet. And when you start looking at, there's a tree in the background here, and because of the way the tree roots are and everything, it's going to take more work than I had estimated. Then as part of that electrical design, that's the electrical consultant will charge us $19,000 to design the new controller, the new electrical panel, and all the stuff that we need to do. And then based on, I had estimated $10,000 to do an arc flash analysis. Guess what? Came back at $10,000. And then what I didn't realize is that when the surveyor was finished with their work, this electrical designer was going to need a topo so that he can do his siting work and work with Edison, and we're going to have to give Edison some stuff. And I didn't realize that was about $7,000 to do that work. And I totally missed the survey work altogether when I prepared my estimate. And so based on these costs plus this cost, that then increases what we're going to need to spend, because there's additional inspections and other things that are required. And then that's going to increase the contingency, because there's things that I don't necessarily know right now, our consultant doesn't know. And who knows, when the contractor gets out there and we start digging things up, we got to have some contingency, which I'm hoping that we do not have to use. Next slide. Now, I need to increase RBH's design fees from that $13,000 that I showed you on the previous slide to about $53,500. That difference is $40,500. Now, of that extra money, RBH needs about $7,000. Linkshire, which is the electrical engineer, requires $29,000. So lion's share of the increase is based on Linkshire to do the $19,000 worth of design and $10,000 worth of arc flash study that we need. And then I'd mentioned that I completely missed the $4,000 for the survey work. So the increase to the RBH design fees is about $40,500. And so at the end of this presentation, I'll be asking for your consideration to allow the general manager to issue a change order. And the reason it's a change order is because I already have them under contract to do design work for this particular station. And so for full disclosure, we wanted our transparency, we wanted to report that to the board of directors. And then I want to provide an extra $20,000 for all that other stuff I was talking about at the bottom of that other slide. So next slide. I'm requesting approval to transfer $65,000 from project 340. It's called the 15th Street Interconnection and Relocation Project. I want to transfer that fund or those funds to project 3330 West Bluff Pump Station. The 340 15th Street Interconnection Project is completed. It was a project down by Newport Harbor High School at 15th and Irvine Avenue. Because we had some staff recommendations that saved us a lot of money on that project. Turns out we have additional funds available and that project's completed. So we had 65,000 from that project that I could relocate to this project. So from a budget perspective and a rate perspective, there is no impact to those items. And then in association or in compliance with our procedures, I'm requesting board authorization to allow the general manager to increase the RBH design fees by $40,500. Next slide. That concludes my report, and I'm happy to answer any questions or discuss any items in particular.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Mark, on, I don't know what page, 8 of your slides, you had RBH design. Original was 13, went to 20 basically, but then on slide 9, and this is the increase to 53.5. Can you just clarify that for me?
Yes. This $53,500, keep that figure in mind. Go back to the next slide, or that slide 8, the previous slide, please, Nolani. When I add 20,000 for 20, the 20,000 for electrical work, the 10,000 for the arc flash work, and the 4,000 for the survey work, that's about $54,000. What I've done is I broke it up because while RBH is our prime contractor, I'd rather have one consultant responsible for the electrical design, the arc flash work, and the survey work, so that in case there's a mistake by the survey work or this electrical contractor, I'm not fighting different consultants for who made the mistake and who's going to pay for it. So when you add all those prices up, that's the $54,000 and change.
Got it. And so in the original estimate, it was not factored in to have that electrical design, arc flash, and survey work, basically.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Good question.
I guess so. I was just wondering, financially, is this in a budget for 21 to 22, or is it the 23 budget, or?
I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm just wondering.
Just
as
go
far
in
as-
slide 8, Nolani, I'm sorry. This 175,000 was actually in the, I think it was the 2021 fiscal year budget.
Okay.
As you recall, usually I think it's October, Caitlin comes in with appropriations to put monies that aren't spent that are already earmarked for projects. She brings an item to you and we reappropriate those types of projects that aren't completed.
Mhm.
We reappropriate the funds for the, I guess I'll say the current fiscal year or the next fiscal year, depending on how you look at it. And so this 175,000 has probably been reappropriated a couple of times. And then I added in April, this past April, to this $175,000, I added 200,000 from a project that also had some issues specifically with easements. And I've got to deal with a couple of homeowners on correcting those easement issues. So because that was going to see some delays, I used that money to add it to this. And then now I'm asking for money that was left over from a project that's done. And all of that stuff was in the current year budget, and any money that was left over from 21, 22 will come to you. I don't know if it's again September or October, but it'll be reappropriated and put into the current year budget. So yes, these funds are budgeted and accounted for. And like I said, I'm just, I guess it's like a shell game. I'm taking money from this project and doing
Yeah.
it there. And this project was completed, so I don't need those funds and I'm adding it here as well.
Well, my real concern is this is dangerous. I mean, we're playing a dangerous game, looking at everything he showed us. I'm thinking something could go on fire and something could go blow up and, you know, we could lose everything. You know, I just think that we need to, you know, really get concerned about financially how we can pay for this and get it done. I mean, it's falling apart.
We're going to approve that tonight, I think.
What?
We're going to approve that amount tonight, I think, for the budget transfer so the job can get done.
Yeah,
Yes, Director Perry, that's what we're asking for tonight is you've already given me the lion's share of the money to do this project. I'm asking for an additional $65,000. So there's 2 action items tonight.
mhm.
They're in your agenda item and they're on the next to the last page of my presentation.
Are you taking that tree out?
We're thinking about it. I guess I hesitate because I prefer not to take out a tree if I don't have to.
This is the city of Costa Mesa, and the city of Costa Mesa is death on taking a tree out. So whatever you guys do, make sure the proper, I guess that would go to Parks.
Well, a couple of things. Number one, it's not in a public right of way. It's not in a public street. And we still have to notify them because it's in our easement and it's interfering with proper operations of our pump station. I've worked with them on other tree projects and issues, and we can usually get through that process. So I am aware of the tree issue. I guess just personally, I don't want to remove a tree if we don't have to. So I'm not ready to quite pull that trigger. But as soon as we finish our design and siting the new electrical, and I've got to go over and look at that and then call and talk to I don't know if it would be the homeowner association president, or if they have a management company, but I do need to go over and talk to them, brief them on this project. And that's one of the issues that needs to be discussed. So I appreciate you reminding me of that fact.
I figured you had it under control. Okay. Any other discussion? We have 2 items to take care of, right, Mark?
Yes, would you like me to repeat them?
No, the recommendations are in your report. Consider approving a budget adjustment and then authorize the general manager to change the RBH contract.
Yes, sir, that's it.
Is that your motion?
I didn't move anything.
I move that, what you just said, the first one.
You want 2 separate motions on it?
No, just one. Yeah.
Should you,
So are you
Are you-
moving to approve both 1 and 2 recommendations?
can we do that?
Yeah, Scott. said
Okay.
that.
I'll second
I
the
would do
motion.
that.
I'll second it.
Further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion
Yay.
carries unanimous 5-0. Thanks for the presentation, Mark. Good
Great
job.
presentation. Yeah.
Mr.
Yes, sir.
If you could also be reminded that the board has adopted an ordinance about property owners not obstructing or interfering with our sewer lines. So we do have the authority to make this the property owner's responsibility. Political considerations with.
It's just, both Brett and I have served on the Parks and Rec Commission. And if you remove any kind of tree, there's public outlash, and that's justified. I mean, they have their, but Mark, you said that tree was in our easement, right?
Yes, we have an easement for the force main and the pump station because it is outside of public right of way.
Yeah.
And so as part of that easement, and because that tree is so close to our pump station, it actually impedes or encroaches on our easement.
I mean, you acknowledge it. We just want to be good neighbors to everybody and make sure they know that they're not going to have that tree giving them shade anymore. Or whatever.
We may, I honestly, I'm gonna try to keep the tree, but we'll have to see.
Thank you. Treasurer's report.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mark.
Mr. Vice President, board members, this is your quarterly review of your portfolio. Looking at the markets, the Dow closed today at 31,990. It was up 90 points on the day. Still a far cry for the year. We're down 4,300 or nearly 12%, 12% in value. Inflation numbers, when we look back over inflation, back in 2020, inflation was running about 1.4%. In 2021 calendar year, it was at 7%. And our June numbers, not June year over year, was at 9.1%, which is the largest increase in inflation since 1981. In an effort to combat that, the Fed started pulling back on their purchasing of treasuries and of their various federal agency securities. They raised interest rates by 0.25% in March, then by 0.5% in May, 0.5% in June. And Chairman Powell has indicated that at the July meeting, which occurs Wednesday of this week, it's probably going to be another 0.5 to 0.75% increase. The economists all think it's going to be at the higher end, the 0.75%. Your portfolio at June 30th was earning 0.910%. That was up from 0.858% in May. In the beginning of the year, we were at 0.620%. So we're starting to see some movement upwards in our portfolio, but we're always going to lag behind the quick increase in the markets because of the types of securities we have. And we have, they're all fixed income securities. We have a buy and hold philosophy. We're not in churning the portfolio. So it's going to be a little bit slower increase. Flip side, when rates go down, you're going to be much slower to fall when rates go down. Many of our securities are callable, and if you look at the changes this month in the portfolio compared to last month and the month before, we're seeing no securities being called. With rates going up, the markets or the various federal agencies are not going to call those securities because they're very low rate securities that we have out there. So our market value is going to continue to stay below water probably for some time as rates continue to increase. It will be interesting when you get to year end, and there was some discussion on the where you're going to end up at year end in your solid waste and wastewater funds. At year end, one of the things that happens is the portfolio gets marked to market, and all this loss in market value will be reflected in your financials at that point in time. We did have a couple investments outside of the June timeframe that matured this Friday. We've reinvested those funds that will settle on Friday, and both those we got some negotiable certificates deposit in the 3% range. So they were both earning in the low 1% range. We're going to be reinvesting those at 3%. With that, I'm available for any questions you may have regarding how your portfolio is doing. And this is an action item when you're all done.
Thank you. Questions for Mark? Anybody?
Just off the wall question, with the interest rate possibly going to 3/4 next month, what is that in, if you were going to buy a house, what would the loan rate be?
Great question.
That's unsolicited opinion.
Do you have an idea?
No,
A lot of people aren't buying homes now because of the interest rates.
everything that we've seen, yeah, the home sales are definitely slow.
Mortgage rate.
Mortgage rates just went down a little bit.
It's a great time to buy.
Yeah, there was a real estate person that came through our neighborhood and left a flyer on our front door. I guess it was last week. The record sales price for a home in Costa Mesa was done. Record price on Magnolia Street.
On Magnolia.
Over in the east side, $3.8 million. I could afford about a quarter of it. I don't know if I could afford a quarter of it. $3.8 million. So
Unreal.
someone's got money. Okay, Mark needs a.
I'll approve the investment report for the month of June.
I'll second.
Thank you. Questions? Bob, any questions?
No.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thanks, Mark. Okay, Counselor.
Thanks, Mr. Vice Chair. This is your routine item, extending the ability to meet remote meetings under AB 361.
I'll move for,
approval. Second,
I'll second it of 2022-969.
So we have a motion by Perry and a second by Uten. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion carries 5-0. Thanks, Alan. Anything else, Alan, for us this evening? We don't have a this evening, right? Okay. Local meetings.
Orange County Sand, it's going to be on Wednesday.
Okay.
So I'll put that in my written report next month.
Anything to add, Bob?
No, I attended the GWRS project. That is expanding the groundwater replenishment system from 100 MGD to 130 MGD. And those contracts, one of them is done. There's 4 of them, and it should be online by March of 2023. And I attended the CAC meeting, and probably be home in time to attend the ISDOC meeting on Thursday. And I apologize for missing the study session meeting.
Okay. Sarfa,
No meeting this month.
Arlene, you want to talk about ISDOC?
Okay, on ISDOC, we have a speaker this Thursday, and it's going to be more on cyber crime and see what's going on. And I'm not announcing it. I turned it over to Heather to do it because I've been away and they didn't give me anything, any kind of bio to say. So I'll just be giving the announcement on CSDA. And so it's a luncheon. It's the first time we're doing something that's in person. And hopefully you all go there or at least, try to. And ISDOC right now is trying to put their life together as far as new officers. So I don't know what we're going to come up with. I've been trying to get out of being president. And it seems like everybody wants to stay where they are and put me in, but I'm holding my own, so we'll see what happens on that. And then on CSDA, we have our trip coming up, which is our annual conference, and it's actually in the Palm Desert, and it will have air conditioning there. So, I'm telling everybody, don't worry about the, heat. And it's a great one. This one is our annual conference. This is the one where we have all the nominations for different categories and different people, and it's all acknowledged at this time. So, it's really great to go to it because it's also got workshops. It's got leadership type. You can get certificates off of this for, doing something. Hopefully they have an ethics one. I don't even know what they have yet because I haven't been looking at my, but I want to go to that.
I saw it on the schedule.
Ooh,
They
you
are
did?
holding the ethics.
Okay, see, I haven't had time to do that. So that's great. Anyway, so it's 22nd to the 25th. And it's just packed with a lot of good things. And I think the golf is on Sunday, which would be,
Monday morning early.
Monday morning.
oh, it's Monday?
It's before the conference starts.
Oh, okay. And then what they have is on Monday also on the 22nd is it's what do they call that? Chapter meeting. And it's for all the chapters in California that are in CSDA. And it's a great time. I mean, we had a real big turnout before, and they've asked either the presidents or somebody to be there to explain what went well, what went wrong, so that all of us could learn from that. But everyone's invited to go to it if they want to, so That's at 3:30. And that's about, other than that, what I'm going to do is tell you that I gave a report and hopefully you'll okay it. And I'm not going to go in detail on it.
All right, I have nothing to report from SDRMA. We had no meeting. Well, we did have a meeting in July, but we have to have a special meeting to approve that virtual thing because we don't meet every 30 days, but that's non-consequential. Any other meetings that qualify for reimbursement?
I'll submit mine in writing.
Okay. Any old business this evening, Scott? No new business either. Oral communications director comments. I have a question on the Sharps deal.
In the water?
No, the Sharps collection.
Oh. Did you
Yeah,
mean-
so I'm taking a medicine now where I have to give myself a shot. Okay, and it comes in this little vial and anyway. So if I get rid of those there, I noticed this evening, you have to put them in some kind of plastic container. You can't just dump it all in there. Okay, so like an old soda bottle or something.
Soda bottle or milk jug, anything that, protects the person from being pricked.
That makes sense. Okay,
Water bottle,
yeah,
that'll fit.
won't fit. The other question is, have you talked to the chief about, I also went to put a flag in there tonight and there ain't no room to put a,
Yeah, we were supposed to have a meeting last week, but he had to cancel. He was acting city manager and he had
Oh.
some issues he had to deal with. So we're trying to reschedule that.
okay, that's fine. All right.
Hmm.
Anybody else, anything else to bring up?
Oh,
But wait a minute, Bob. Brett's
I
gonna
beat
go ahead of you this time.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Question, Scott. We talked about the net hauler rate previously tonight and the board voted, the majority voted to approve that, but per the contract annually, they have to submit the 33, districts and all that. When was the last time that was submitted?
Last year.
So nothing for 2022?
No, we're just not gearing up to start doing our annual evaluation. So it'll be coming before you real soon.
So tonight, the majority board voted for that if, and I have no idea because I haven't seen it, but if that fell outside the 10%, it's already a contract violation, they would owe us a rebate, correct?
I'd have to look at the contract, exactly what it says, but I'll get back to you on that. I don't know for sure.
Yeah, I'd be curious because I mean, it's possible that we just voted saying that's already a violation and per the contract, it would be owed as a rebate back to us anyway. So yeah, I'd like to see that net hauler rate, but all right, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? If there's nothing
oh,
else.
yeah, I'd like to ask a question.
Mr. President, I forgot you were even there. Go ahead, Bob.
Huh? Oh, well, yeah. I have, and I've heard the board members talk about a trash hauler issue, and I got my first call on. A man had asked for trash carts, and it just continued to be a substantial delay. And I was wondering if we couldn't store some of those carts at the yard and provide that service. Apparently substantially easier than CR&R can do it. But we don't get many of those calls, but I've heard other directors talking about it, and it just seems pitiful that CR&R apparently doesn't have the staff, and they make promises and they can't keep them. It would be seemingly so simple that if somebody needs 2 carts, and that's what his request was, and he waited a couple months, and I'm not sure that he's gotten them yet. And so I promised him that I'd bring this up, to try to get some sort of resolution. Anyway, that, somehow that, that issue could be taken care of very easily locally, in my opinion, but anyway,
Mike, I'll let, Mike Carey is here, Bob. Did you want him to comment on that?
well, sure. I can give Mike his, the email I sent him, and, he just thanked me for at least responding.
Good,
Yes,
Mike.
Bob, please forward me that information. We're nowhere near 2 months out for cart replacements, and we're getting those requested quite frequently.
Okay. Well, okay, I'll send you his information.
Yeah, please do. We'll get it taken care of.
Thank you.
Thank you both. Anything else, Bob?
No, I'm looking forward to getting home.
We're looking forward to seeing you.
Right.
I'll bet.
Anything else
Thank
from
you.
staff? All right, thank you all for your work, and we are adjourned.
So did you get a copy of what's being